Hi everyone, I am Kushagri Sharma and I am a second year grad student at the University of Florida. And today I'll be talking about the idea of extending persistence using Poincaré and Lefschetz duality. This is one of the examples that I'll be talking about, and this is from the following source, which is mentioned below. Let's look at the motivation behind extending persistence. So this is a simple graph, and if we try to look at the topological features of this graph, then we have one single connected component. We also have two branches. One of the branch is pointing downwards and the other one is pointing upwards. Not specifically talking about the branches which are straight, but the slanting ones. And then we have one loop. So moving on, if we see at the persistence diagram of this graph, so this is the persistence diagram which is obtained by using the sublevel set persistence homology. So we get to see these features. So the green one is the branch pointing downwards, which starts at point 0.5 and it joins with the original component at 2. Another component, which is the connected component in dimension 0, which started at 0 and then persists forever. So the second coordinate is infinity. And another feature, which is the one-dimensional feature, which is a loop, which completely appeared at 4 and then persists forever. So the second coordinate is again infinity. Moving on, there are some missing features though. Branch pointing upwards is not detected, so we need something that can detect the branch pointing upwards. We also do not have any notions of sizes of the connected component and the loop because the second coordinate for both of them were infinity. So let's see if extended persistence can fix this. Before moving ahead, let's try to look at some of the definitions that we have. So M is a smoothly embedded two-dimensional manifold in 3 dimensions. So we have defined the height function. The height function is defined with the help of a direction. So we have any given direction u in the three-dimensional sphere. Then we have the height function defined with the help of this direction, with the help of this product, which is the product with the point on the manifold. And a point on the manifold is said to be critical in this particular direction, which direction is the direction of the unit normal vector at that point. So these are the definitions that we'll be working with. And next we have what is meant by the superlevel sets and the sublevel sets with the help of figures. So the sublevel set is denoted by M superscript A, sorry, the subscript A, and it's actually the inverse image of this interval, which is negative infinity to A included. And similarly, we have superlevel sets. So superlevel sets, they are denoted by M's superscript A. And it's the inverse image of this interval, which is A to infinity, A included. Since A is included in both of these, so these are manifolds with boundary. And if we see with the help of the image, then the purple thing represents the superlevel sets and the black thing represents the sublevel sets. Moving ahead, we try to extend our filtration. So AIs are all the critical values of the height function, and we have some interleaved values. So BIs are the interleaved values. Now let's look at what happens when we have these inclusions in the sublevel sets. So MBK is contained in MBK plus 1, and these inclusions actually induce the maps on the homology and the cohomology groups. So it so the map in the homology groups is in the same direction as the inclusion, but it's in the reverse direction in the cohomology groups. So these are the maps that we'll be working with. And then we try to look at the Poincaré duality. So the Poincaré duality tells us that for a d-dimensional manifold, the r-dimensional homology group is actually isomorphic to the D minus R dimensional cohomology group of the manifold. Let's see how we utilize this. So we have this following sequence. The first half of the sequence are the maps which are induced by the natural inclusions on the homology groups. So we have MB naught, so which is equal to 0 because MB naught is just an empty set. And then we move on to build these maps until we reach HR MBN, which is the entire manifold now. So it's the homology group of the entire manifold. And then we have this isomorphism, which is given by the Poincaré duality, which leads us to the second half of the sequence. Then we move on using the maps that we saw earlier, using the inclusions on the cohomology groups, and then we end at 0 again. But in order to interpret the sequence better, we have to use cohomology. Not very comfortable with it, so we'll try to convert everything to relative homology. This is when the Lefschetz duality comes into picture. So Lefschetz duality tells us that the D minus R dimensional cohomology group of this sublevel set MBK is actually isomorphic to the homology of this relative pair. The pair is the sublevel set, and we are modding out by the boundary of the sublevel set. We further need to use excision. So this excision helps us to convert this relative pair to another relative pair, which is now the entire manifold, but we are trying to mod out by the super level sets now. The image tells it better, so you can maybe pause and try to understand the image better. So the first thing of the sequence that we saw earlier remains as such. We are still using the homology groups and we try to ascend. So we are increasing the sublevel sets. And then the cohomology groups now get converted to the homology groups of this pair that we now have. So the pair is the entire manifold, and then we mod out by the super level sets. So we keep on modding out by the super level sets, starting with modding out with MBN, then MBN minus 1, and so on till MB0. And so we start with 0 and we end at 0. So everything that gets born eventually dies. And this is how we ensure that all the critical points will be paired. So extended persistence ensures that every critical point will be paired. And then we try to understand this with the help of an example. So this is a two-dimensional manifold. And let's see how we mark the critical points of the height function on this manifold. If we try to see then what happens at an index I critical cell, it either leads to the creation of a homology class or it leads to the destruction of the previous homology class. So, for instance, starting with A1, this is an index 0 critical point. It creates an H0 and so on. You can see what happens at each index. If we try to ascend, so if we try to increase the sublevel sets, then we see that these are the pairs that we try to have. So A2 and A3, which means that A3 actually kills the homology class, which was born at A2. And similarly, A9 actually kills the one-dimensional homology class, which was created by A8. Again, we try to descend. So while descending, we keep on modding out with the super level sets. And these are further the pairs that we get. A10 actually kills the homology class, the zero-dimensional homology class, which was created by A1 in the first place. And so on, we have further pairs. Then we have more pairs, and you can pause and see how the pairs work. Further, this is how we have a summary of the pairs of the critical points, and we try to classify them into three parts. You can definitely see some symmetry going on between the pairs, And we have three categories where we'll put these pairs into. So the first is the ordinary, the pairs that were born and killed while going up, the relative, born and killed while coming down, and the extended ones, which were born while going up and killed while coming down. So if we try to look at the pairs, then the relative ones have the first coordinate greater than the second one. But for the extended ones, we have a mix of both of these. So extended plus would be the ones whose first coordinate is less than the second one, and the extended minus would be the ones whose first coordinate is greater than the second one. If we try to apply the extended persistence on the previously considered graph, then we have the following four persistence diagrams: the ordinary, relative, extended plus, extended minus. Let us look at what particular features of the graph do these identify. So the yellow thing, which is the loop in dimension one, is actually identified by extended minus persistence diagram. It did appear completely at 4, and then we started modding out by the sublevels, superlevel sets, and it vanished at 1. Then we have the red thing, which is the branch pointing downwards, which is denoted in the ordinary persistence diagram. Definitely, it was born at zero point 0.5, vanished at 2. Then we have the green thing, which is the branch pointing upwards. It's in the relative persistence diagram. And again, we have the entire connected component, which is denoted by blue in the extended plus persistence diagram. And it appeared at 0, vanished at 5. So we now have some idea of the sizes of the connected component and the loop, which were infinity earlier or like persisted forever earlier. And then we also have the detection of the branch pointing upwards. So this is how extended persistence has made it better. Thank you so much. This was all for this time, and I hope you enjoyed it.